The imperial palace was turned into real ruins. It is true that monsters attacked when Ivan fled the last time, but what happened now was completely different. Their numbers had multiplied over and over. Moreover, the knights had lost a large number of their number in the Battle of the Forbidden Forest, and Fenric's own soldiers were moving alone, making the losses unavoidably heavy. The monsters were swooping relentlessly, as if mocking reports that their numbers had declined in recent years. She started hunting people like crazy, as if she had decided to fill their hungry stomachs a long time ago. After priests, knights, and even magicians came together in bitter combat, they were finally able to restrain the monsters. But it was not a victory. The army, of which only half was left after the Forbidden Forest disaster, was once again reduced to less than half. Those who were staying in the palace were brutally slaughtered by monsters. It was no exaggeration to say that every foothold was covered in corpses. Blood flowed in rivers, and the torn body parts were piled up like worn-out rags lying underfoot. The palace has become ruins in every sense of the word, with no intact building in it. The lower prison where Fenric was imprisoned was destroyed, as was the magic tower, the imperial church, and even Dietrich's palace itself, only half of which survived. The western tower, where Presepe was held, collapsed completely until no trace remained of it. In that chaos, Siegfried only escaped death thanks to Fenric. Fenric got off his horse, his features hard. He passed by, ignoring the members of Siegfried's family who received him with gratitude, and walked along roads he knew well. The butler, who was old and pale-faced, said, "He regained consciousness only an hour ago." "I don't know how to thank you, Duke. If you had not been there, my lord would never have come back alive. How can I repay you?" "It is enough." For Fenric it was nothing to be thankful for. He saved Siegfried for a specific reason. "Take me to where Siegfried lies." "Your command." The butler quickly led him carefully through the long corridors, past the reception room where Fenric had received documents about the Demon King before, until they reached Siegfried's room. The servant bowed and left, and Fenric slowly opened the door and entered. Siegfried lay on the bed, his face telling of imminent death. No one would have been surprised if he had given up his soul at any moment. Duke Fenric, Siegfried recognized him with a cracking voice, and tried to get up but could not stand it. Fenric approached, exhaled briefly, then gently tapped his shoulder as if to say, "You don't have to get up." "I heard what happened." Siegfried was the first to speak, head bowed. "I should have been more helpful. I have no way to meet you, Duke." Fenric replied coldly, "Aren't those words that His Majesty should say for you?" Then he added in a dry tone, "Anyway, as long as you're still alive, that's enough for you." In fact, Dietrich was not greatly harmed. But this does not mean that he ran away when he heard what happened, but rather he did his best as he could. However, the huge number of monsters was something he could not resist, no matter how hard he tried. In any case, it became impossible for Dietrich to continue imprisoning Wenric. Not only because the prison had completely collapsed, but because what happened to Siegfried represented another compelling reason. "I should have protected Mrs." Siegfried sighed deeply as he whispered. Fenric said sternly, "Tell me everything you saw." "Everything. Without exception." Siegfried looked up at him, eyes clear of hesitation and confusion. "I fell into danger because I was too greedy." Moments before the palace was invaded and Presepe was kidnapped, Siegfried remembered something that had never occurred to him before. What if the real killer of Atari Hanan and Noah Duverne was Fenric himself? That's why he went to Presepe Tower, to tell her what was on his mind. But now, could he tell this man what he saw? Is Fenric really someone who can be trusted? Since the Forbidden Forest incident, Siegfried had become certain that Fenric had nothing to do with monsters, and so he did not suspect him as Dietrich did. His gratitude increased for saving his life in that hell. However, all of this was not a sufficient reason to give him absolute confidence. Therefore, he remained unable to say what he wanted. "But now I am completely helpless. Even if he wanted to intervene himself, his physical condition would not allow him to do anything. If he told Dietrich the truth, the latter would not be able to move. Only Fenrik was left able to act. And so, Siegfried stared at Fenrik and opened his lips with difficulty. Can I trust the Duke? I dare ask you. At Siegfried's question, Fenrik didn't react for a moment. He seemed to be staring at him with mysterious eyes that could not be read, then he answered in a voice containing some sarcasm, and what can you do? Sorry? I mean, other than trust me and tell me everything you know, what else can you do? You know exactly what I mean, Siegfried. Okay. It must be so. It was a question whose answer was settled from the beginning, whether he could trust Fenrik or not. Siegfried let out a heavy sigh. Then he began to speak slowly. When I heard that the Duke and Lady Presepe had been imprisoned, I went first to the tower. I was worried. But he slightly concealed the exact truth. But there I found someone I had never seen before. I don't know who he was. But he was a man with blonde hair and blue eyes. Vidar. In Fenrik's red eyes a deadly spark gleamed. Since an unidentified intruder broke into the place, I summoned the guards and knights who were on duty. But suddenly... But what? The monsters attacked all at once. In a flash. Thick black clouds rose around the man's body, and with them the monsters swooped towards Presepe Tower. As if she was protecting him. I thought I must protect Mrs. I rushed with all my strength, but the man put out his hand, and at the same moment there was a huge explosion and the tower began to collapse. The monsters also became more ferocious. Siegfried continued, perhaps due to the shock, Ms. Which is understandable, as by then there were mutilated bodies scattered all around us. The scene is still stuck in his memory. That pale face of Mrs. Then the man started attacking again, and I collapsed. When I opened my eyes again, I didn't see anything. Everything happened so quickly. But, Siegfried hesitated a little, then continued cautiously, before Ms. I couldn't hear clearly over the sound of the explosion, but it seemed like she was begging him to let go of her. Fenrik's face is contorted in extreme displeasure. But the man said something strange. Something strange? He said, I will do nothing but return it to its original place. That's all he said. This was the last thing Siegfried told. Fenrik didn't react. He stared silently into the void, then turned away without hesitation, without saying a word of farewell or even checking on Siegfried. Duke. Where are you going? The Duke. Duke Fenrik. Siegfried's shouts reached him as he walked away, but that did not matter at that moment. Praesepe, who disappeared without a trace. The ruined tower. And the people unanimously said, she must have died. We haven't found her body yet, but it's just a matter of time. But those were very stupid words. Back to its original place. There was only one possibility. Fenrik bit his lips with all his might, then quickly walked out of Siegfried's palace. A sharp smell of blood suffocates the nose. Red blood sprayed on her face. Continuous noise. Ear-piercing screams. Shouts Siegfried. Then. It's because of you. I killed them all just to get you. With my own hands, I. Deep confusion, in the end, he was just killing everyone who approached you, just to keep you for himself. I told you then, didn't I? My eyes see no difference between them. The deep despair she felt when her belief that only Fenrik was different began to crack. Impossible, it couldn't have been the Duke who did this. He's not like other men. He is the one who will protect her until the end, and will never betray her. Was she really trying to believe this, or was she stubbornly arguing with herself? She couldn't even tell, before Presepe lost consciousness. But when she opened her eyes again, she found herself in a place she never expected. Her sunlit violet eyes sparkled like jewels. There was no longer any trace of noise. Rather, it is the sounds of birds singing peacefully, a gentle breeze blowing, and the scent of flowers wafting from afar.